Right. So we should be streaming, but I'm not seeing it yet. Oh,
Likewise.
there we go.
Hey,
There it is. So,
so
hello and welcome to Tabletop Cafe. You can think of us as your roadside diner along your tabletop journey where we serve up bite-sized chunks of gaming goodness for you to enjoy with you and your friends at your table. We have a special show tonight because Chris wasn't feeling well, so I kicked him to the curb so that he could rest up and recuperate, and brought on a friend of mine, Moe, to be a special guest co-host tonight. And just by happenstance, Moe's got some stuff he wants to talk about. So Moe, welcome to the show, buddy.
thanks for having me. This feels like deja vu.
All
Like
over again.
like we've been on a game podcast show before.
Well, I don't want to set it up for success so that we then fail miserably. But yes, we have done this a time or two before. Both of us have podcasted for quite a while. Both of us have been in the game design space for a little while, you more than me. But yeah, we are a bit of old hats at this. Focus on the old part of that. But how have you been? What you been doing? What's new and exciting in the world of Moe/ashyfeet.com?
Well, Mo's year has been very exciting. A fire was in the news that came within about a mile of my home, and it's way too close for comfort. Um, but my home still stands, and so I'm comfortable, and you know, uh, dealing with a little survivor's guilt because a lot of my friends and community had 20 minutes to grab everything and lost it all. I'm also I work in the garage, and I'm definitely reconciling. I had a chance about a day to grab everything that was important. And so now I'm looking at the rest of this stuff like, well, if it's not important, what is
Yeah,
it?
why do I have it? Yeah.
So definitely going through some things in 2025. Um, but along the way, I decided to publish a board game
Yeah.
um, called Dark Heist. Dark Heist is a Victorian era spooky heist game where you're playing monstrous criminals and criminal monsters. So it's a deck builder. It's very, very vibes wise in the gothic horror setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's very inspired by a RPG called Blades in the Dark
Mm-hmm.
that I am a big fan of. This won't be the first game made inspired by Blades in the Dark. But yeah, it's got real good feelings at the table. People are liking it. I play tested it about 120 times,
Ooh.
and it went from the games lasted 5-10 minutes because it definitely wasn't working to that point where it was just handwritten cards and sleeves that it like started to really work. And then I went and did some graphic design and realized I don't do graphic.
Mm-hmm.
I should pay people for graphic design.
Yeah.
And just all the speed bumps and hurdles. The hardest part about making a game, of course, is writing the instructions.
Yeah.
So
Again, Action 12 Cinema, that was by far the hardest part. It wasn't coming up with the rules. It was writing them in a way that could convey them to someone without me being there. That was fun to read, but also informative, but also was concise, which is why I paid an editor to help me. So editors, graphic designers, those folks absolutely earned their coin hardcore. But before we get too far into it, because we're going to dedicate quite a lot of time to the game, because I have some very true interest and I want to talk to you about it. I do want to take a little bit of a step back because as we were saying just before we went on air, I recently watched Firefly. It's a show I have loved for many, many years. Apparently Joss Whedon turned out to be a horrible person. Acknowledge that. I still love Firefly. There were a lot of other people that were involved, and I just assumed that they're the reason why I love it and not him. But I didn't watch the show when it first came out. I don't know how familiar you are with Firefly, but it actually had been canceled. Famously, the show was canceled halfway through its first season. And then the movie Serenity came out. So this was like 2 years, I guess, after the show ended. And a buddy at the time, one of my D&D buddies, was like, "You need to watch this. It's so much fun. You would love it." And I just didn't when the show was on, and then it got canceled. So, whatever. But the movie came out. So I saw the movie first. I loved the movie. I'm like, this is so cool.
Right.
And so then I went back and watched the show. And I've probably watched the show a couple dozen times. In my opinion, Out of Gas might be the single best episode of any television show in the history of TV, as far as I'm concerned. But it's a show about heists. So I wanted to ask you, obviously you've got some love of heists, or, you probably wouldn't have made a game that's based around that. So what are some of your favorite heist media, TV shows, books, other games? Just when you think of heists, what does Mo think of?
You really want to go to the edge of the cliff and jump.
Absolutely. Come on. You don't name a game Dark Heists if you don't want to talk about heists and darkness, but we'll get to that one later.
Exactly. So, I think I was introduced to the heist genre with uh uh young male literature,
Okay.
I'll call it. I had a bad habit of finding books.
Hmm.
And sometimes they were books that I should have been reading, and sometimes they were books that I probably shouldn't be reading as a child, teenager, young man. And I stumbled upon this book series by Donald Westlake. And the series didn't have a name. And but the lead character, his name was Parker. And men's adventure, that's the genre.
Men's adventure.
And Parker was kind of your evil James Bond.
Okay.
He didn't have a MI5 agency he worked for. He had a Confederate group of criminals that he trusted to a greater or lesser degree, some of them. Um, every book was about 120, 130 pages. He always woke up with some woman who he had to either get away from quickly or kill.
Mm.
Because these books were written in the 60s and 70s. And so he would then find out about a heist, figure out why, it was probably not the best heist, have his arm twisted to have to do the heist anyway, get in over his head, figure out how to get out, and wind up in the bed with some woman. So that you could kind of read these books out of order, but because they were the same story, but different, in that Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew kind of way.
I grew up reading Hardy Boys. I read pretty much every one of those for a few years. I think they still make them, but there was a period of time where I had read every Hardy Boys book that was ever published.
So I think the Parker novels were probably my first real introduction. My first thing that's made me say, I like heist genres. I was always a big fan of the Wild Wild West and Mission Impossible shows, which were very heisty. Man from U.N.C.L.E. I don't know if you remember that show.
Didn't watch it, but I'm familiar with it. And the movie that came out a few years ago with Henry Cavill, really good.
Yeah.
Ton of fun.
Well,
okay. All right. Fair enough. I thought it was fun at the time. I have not revisited it since then.
It was fun. It was different.
Okay.
But, all things kind of about the Cold War before 1989 are gonna be different. It was real. It was really that atmosphere of spy stuff. And, it didn't click for me till I was an older person that I realized that the spy stuff and the crime stuff are kind of the same thing. It's like
two sides,
you're breaking
same
the
coin.
law, you're killing people, you got something up your sleeve, you're telling bald-faced lies for your country or for your own personal enrichment, whatever. So it was really interesting. I ended up moving to Los Angeles in the early 2000s to become a screenwriter. And I discovered that this Donald Westlake guy was a screenwriter. And these Parker novels were what he did between gigs.
Okay.
He just turn out these pulp novels and, get paid for them or whatever. And discovered that that's kind of who Michael Crichton was too. Michael Crichton was a screenwriter who didn't make it until he wrote so many books that suddenly he did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also discovered that these Parker novels had been made into movies. So there are about 15 Parker novels, but they are not kind of like the Alex Cross movies.
Okay.
They don't have the same production company. They don't
Right.
have the same actor. They kind of come out in fits and starts. And so Jason Statham was in a Parker movie. I want to say Burt Reynolds was in a Parker movie. Like it's just somebody gets a hold of these novels and they're like, this is good pithy stuff.
Right.
This is very cinematic. And of course it's cinematic because it's written by a screenwriter.
Right. Right.
So, periodically these films come out and I should probably Google to see if somebody's created a Parker novel database or something like that. I don't know if you know about Alex Cross, but Morgan Freeman has played Alex Cross, and oh, what's that young man's name? The guy who ended up playing Hawkman in the
Aldous Hodge.
yeah, Aldous
Yeah.
Hodge played Alex Cross, and Tyler Perry played Alex Cross. And so, just to give like those are three different,
Yeah.
totally like Morgan Freeman's been old forever, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
Aldous Hodge is very young and beautiful. My wife keeps refusing to say in front of me, but I can hear it in the tone of her voice.
he's a handsome
So
man. I'll tell you, he's a handsome
he's
man.
a handsome
Yeah.
man. So yeah, these Parker novels are kind of similar, and definitely set me up to love the likes of Firefly, set me up to love the likes of Ocean's 11, set me up to love kind of the what it was the Italian Job
Yeah.
series,
Yeah.
like all of those kind of flicks where you know there is an obvious heist but you can't trust the narrator because he's gonna do a trick at the end and suddenly get away with it. You
Okay.
know, um, the what's her name? Um, there was just one starring Viola Davis. I think it's called Widows.
Okay.
That was very interesting by this director who directs very heavy, projects. His name is Steve McQueen.
Mm.
He directed 12 Years a Slave and, very heavy thing. But he also directed this movie, Widows, which is very much this heist film
Okay.
starring Viola
Wow,
Davis.
I'll check
Viola
that one out.
Davis,
Yeah.
Viola Davis, and not Clive Owen, the Taken guy,
Liam Neeson.
Liam
Okay.
Neeson, and Viola Davis. Yeah,
Interesting.
and Liam Neeson's a crook. Okay, that's not a stretch. But Viola Davis is his wife, and she ends up having to do the heist
Oh, okay.
in order to like not lose everything because he didn't finish the heist.
So I'd like to interject. If we didn't already say, Dark Heists, as of this moment, is on Kickstarter, and it just hit goal at your 69th backer. So nice.
Hey, thanks for the good news, Michael.
Fantastic. Yeah, happy to. So we're going to circle back to the Kickstarter too.
It's been a whole stressful 2 days
Oh.
of just not trying to sit at a computer refreshing.
Yeah,
It's
F9.
like, I'm going outside for a walk.
Now, I someone who's ran multiple Kickstarters, 100% get it. And I have a bunch of questions about the Kickstarter I want to talk to you about as well. But so we talked about heist. So your bona fides or bona fide, you've been a heist lover for many years. Come by it honestly. But I do want to ask about the dark part. Again, I was kind of somewhat joking, but you could have set a heist game in the Wild West. You could have done it in the far future. You could have done it in like a casino. You could have done it in like a gangster. Like there's so many different themes or genres of where a heist would work. So why did you choose to set it in a sort of this dark universe, mummies, or not mummies, but like ghosts and monsters and stuff? Like what was it about that particular flavor that interested you to theme your game around it?
So I know this is kind of a nerd culture show. But But sometimes you'll have that moment with a nerd where you're tired of them going so deep, and I'm going to try not to do that. Um, to know me for too long is to know I have a thing about Frankenstein.
Oh, okay.
I've been working on a Frankenstein project for probably 15 years now. Pre-COVID, it was supposed to be a documentary. At one point, it was shaped like a podcast. It might be a book now.
No.
I'm figuring it out.
Okay.
But I am a huge, I wouldn't say a Frankenstein fan, but I'm very curious about why Mary Shelley wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
As an 18-year-old girl, um, that if you read the book, is very much about race. It's very much about empire. It's very much about like a level of horror that is less slasher and more paternal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just very curious. So I've been doing a lot of research into late 1700s, early 1800s England, and I am um, far too versed in this to be healthy. I've gone and I've read books that she's inspired to include Dracula, Jekyll and Hyde, um, and even Lovecraft, just to kind of get a sense of, you know, are they doing the things she did? Do they understand what she was doing? Or are some of these people out for a cash grab that got famous?
Right.
You know what I mean? Um, so I am very comfortable in the Victorian setting.
Okay.
Um, I also, okay, new topic. I used to play D&D,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Heard of it.
right? This it's a game. Um, and I was always frustrated with D&D because I always wanted to play the Thieves Guild game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And D&D second edition, third edition didn't incentivize the Thieves Guild game because you'd never get enough experience after a while to go up in levels because killing people just aren't worth enough experience. So I was always frustrated that, all right, we got to go find some monsters so we can level up. So we can get more spell slots, so we can get more, more magic weapons, blah, blah, blah. Um, so I was surprised when I returned to the hobby in 2015 to discover a game called Blades in the Dark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Blades in the Dark did the Thieves Guild game great. It didn't do the killing monster thing great. It did do the Thieves Guild game great. And so I fell in headfirst with that game. And I love it for what it does, great.
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't do everything. You don't have to use it for everything, but it's good for what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so being very versed in that, I designed a game that was similar to Blades in the Dark called Shibuya Nights. Another role-playing game. Uh, it's interesting. It is to the Parker novels what James Bond is,
Okay.
and so you're a good guy who does all these bad things,
Mm.
but for good reasons, as opposed to Parker being, you're a bad guy who does all these bad things for bad reasons. Shibuya Nights was supposed to be a little more family friendly.
Sure.
It was supposed to be much more about mischief and much less about crime, and much more about righting wrongs than it was about personal gain. But sometimes it ended up looking exactly the same.
Right. Yeah.
So I started messing around in board game design, and I was really working on trying to find a thing, and it didn't work. I was trying to figure out how to do a deck building game that was more than a deck building game. Have you played a game called Dune Imperium?
I have not.
Brilliant game,
Okay.
uh, made by Paul. Oh, I'm going to Google his name. He's the same person who did Clank.
Okay.
Uh,
I love Clank. Clank's
Paul
great.
Denon.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think they both do a very good job of having a deck building game that does more than just deck building.
Right.
Um, Dune way more. It's 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 the game for people who want a game with more complication. If you don't want a game with more complication, like Dune might not be for you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. So there's something for everybody.
Right.
So I was trying to do something along the lines of Dune, and I was failing miserably.
Fair.
But it, in that way that the mind wanders when you're in the pit of despair, I was like, this does the Blades in the Dark thing very well. And so I ended up coming up with this game
Okay.
where you're each card in the deck is a scoundrel. So you're recruiting these scoundrels. Kind of like Ocean's 11. Each person you let into your gang, they have a certain set of skills. Nobody's exactly the same as somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And you let them in for that reason. And then you kind of tune in your deck to work in a certain way. And then you go do heist.
Okay. So let's take a step back there. Because it's somewhat just kind of funny. We were talking again. So I'm now part of the Tabletop Journeys team, and I'm podcasting with them, doing these live shows. But for many years I was on the RPG Academy. It's the thing that I helped create, and Jake is now taking over that feed, and he's doing phenomenal work. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. So if you like this, go subscribe to that as well.
Yes.
But I was going back through some of the old videos because we're talking about do we need to cut some of these? Because there's some really bad stuff that I did on there when I didn't know what I was doing. So we're like, maybe we need to cut out, because if we do get people watching, do we want them to watch all the awful stuff? So there's conversations about what we keep, what we don't. And so I was like checking out some of the old videos, and there was a video, I don't remember now what it was. I was reviewing a game, and I'm like, yeah, this is a deck builder, and I just don't think it's my style of game. I don't think that's, I think that's the reason I didn't like it, because I would say now deck building is one of, if not my favorite type of game. I love deck builders. I actively seek them out to play them because I enjoy them so much. So it's just kind of funny that like my first experience with the deck builder just didn't touch me right. Said that dirty, but you know what I mean? But as someone who does,
you want a game to touch you.
I do want a game that touches me right with consent.
With consent.
Right. So I think what had happened is that when I finally found a deck builder that matched a theme I cared about, that's when it connected. And for me, that was the Marvel Legendary. I still really love that game. I also like cooperative games in general. So that kind of hit all the different buttons for me. I also like the DC deck builder, which is very similar, but it's, competitive. Clank, we mentioned, I actually really love the Clank game, and there's a few others. But Marvel Legendary is the one that I'm most familiar with. So I kind of want to use it, fair or foul, as a comparison point, because it's what I'm familiar with, to talk about some of the iterations and innovations that your game has. So first of all, your game is competitive, right? We are not cooperating. We are fighting against our opponents.
It's competitive. It's not cooperative.
And is it 1 to 4? Because could I play it solo just to see how good of an engine I can build?
Absolutely. There's this cool solo mode. The greatest compliment I got on the solo mode is it's brutal. It's engaging.
Okay.
The Atoma or auto player is definitely coming at you in a way that another player wouldn't, but you also don't have anybody to talk to. You don't have anybody to vibe with. So you're kind of focused on the game, and it makes you focus on the game, or you lose. I've heard it was very engaging, and I'll take that as a plus.
Absolutely, take that as a win. So with both the Marvel and DC, I think since this is competitive, the DC might actually be a better touch.
I haven't played the DC one yet.
Okay.
I think that just came out.
No, it's been out for years.
Okay.
But I think there's like a new
new
expansion came out. But essentially, you play superheroes. You get a superhero that you play. So and then each superhero has its own version. It lets you break the rules in some certain way. So if you have Batman, then like certain types of cards are more beneficial than others. If you're this hero, you get to draw extra cards, and if you're this hero, you get if you play a variety. So if you because there's different types of cards. So again, for the DC one, there's like equipment cards, there's superpower cards, there's ally cards, and certain superheroes get bonuses based on the majority. Like if you focus on equipment as Batman, I think you get bonuses, right?
Right.
And then the way that game works is you have a whole bunch of supervillains. The game can be longer or shorter based on how many, like, oh, we're going to play a 3 supervillain game. That'll be over pretty quick. Right. I think standard's like 8 or 9. But which supervillains you choose, which heroes you choose, and then how you design your deck based on the options all provide you a wide variety and variability so that the game is replayable over and over and over again. So I know that's a lot of different things I said, but what sort of things does your game do that also might be a mix and match that would allow me to play multiple times and still have a new experience as I refine my strategy?
Exactly. So, couple of things in scaffolding that Marvel Legends has that I don't.
Okay.
Everybody knows Spider-Man.
Yep.
Everybody knows Captain America. So when you go into these games, you kind of have an idea of the thing that you want to do off the bat, and I don't have that benefit.
Okay.
So there's also the fact that as a collaborative game, you're getting combos in your deck, but you're also getting combos together.
Right. Yep.
Right. My game is different in both of those. It's different in one of those. So you are getting combos by yourself based on what you recruit.
Mm-hmm.
But you're starting with kind of a pretty vanilla gang of scoundrels.
Okay. I mean, starter decks, that's pretty common across all of them. They give you enough to get you started. They usually, like, some games have multiple resources, like the Marvel has 2, one for recruit, one for fight. The DC just has one that does both. So does your game have multiple resources?
Little closer to DC.
Okay.
So you end up, so there are 5 suits. And each suit kind of really leans toward a type of play. But you don't have to stay in any suits. I often recommend for first-time players that you stay in a suit.
Okay.
You've never seen any of these cards before. Kind of pick a suit at random, and if you just stay in that suit, you're going to end up with a fun deck.
Okay.
And you're also going to say, oh, I see I could have done more, and I want to do more next time. That's the goal that you want to play again. There's a noble suit. The noble suits are very good at getting money. Okay. Money is like a meta resource in the game. We'll come back to that. There's the crooked suit. The crooked suit is very good at drawing more cards.
Okay. One of my favorite abilities in deck builders. I love card drawing abilities.
Yeah, it's a thing. Then you have the ghost suit. The ghost suit combines combos very well together. Okay. There is a element in the game called the Spectre, and you start with a Spectre in your hand, and the Spectre is going to haunt you, and it's going to kind of drain resources from the thing you're trying to do whenever it's in your hand. And the problem is, your hand is made up of 10 cards, 2 cards from each suit. But if you lean into the ghost deck, suddenly those specters become a benefit.
Okay.
And so they can, in turn, make your deck more powerful if you just go all ghost cards. They also have a bonus for in-game scoring. There's also an element in the game called heat.
Classic heist sort of thing. You gotta do the job, but if you get caught or you get too much heat, you may not get out clean.
Exactly. So heat is something that you can affect other players with, something that happens to you when things are going wrong. And so it tends to be punitive, right? You have the brutal suit that likes heat. When heat comes in the brutal suit, they can actually get more powerful.
Okay.
They combo with heat. And so it's like you can end up I've seen a couple people kind of get their heat decks up and running. It's like, oh, I'm generating heat, and I love it,
Mm.
and everybody else is looking at them like, you're weird. That deck you got over there, you're weird, but it's absolutely your deck,
Right.
Um, and then you have the cop suit, and they're cops in the game, and they're crooked cops, they're bad cops, and they also have an interesting relationship with heat. So um, a lot of the cops get to ignore heat
Okay.
as it comes around, and so you end up with like this opportunity to essentially make little recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe I want a few ghosts and a few crookeds because I want to, combo well and I want to draw extra cards. Maybe I want some cops and some brutals because I want to work with heat. And you just have an opportunity to create these like really awesome custom decks that have strong themes. So I don't have to say Superman for you to get it.
Right. Right.
You get what I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
There are enough scoundrel cards in the deck, and there's kind of a timing mechanism in the game. You'll never make it through the whole deck, and so the whole kind of deck of scoundrels. So you really have this opportunity to build the best deck you can with whatever comes up out of the cards, and so you're trying to do the best you can with what comes up out of the cards. Your opponents are trying to do the best they can with what comes up out of the cards. And that becomes one of the, you know, limited resource opportunities of the game.
Okay.
And people tend to like it. Instead of comboing with other players, you have opportunities to stab other players in the back
Okay.
by stealing their coins, by ransoming or murdering cards in their deck, by stealing, ransoming. There are a couple other things. I'm sorry.
So
Suddenly, I'm
no,
trying
so
to.
I was getting ready to ask you about that. So we'll kind of reverse segue and then go back into that. So again, the DC version, which is competitive, uh, really there's not a lot of ways for you to mess with another player,
Mm,
other than if it becomes clear how they're trying to build their deck.
right.
Like it's clear they want equipment cards. You can take an equipment card that doesn't really help you, but it hurts them. And that
Mm-hmm.
becomes a decision point that is fun. It's strategic. Is it better for me to go after what only helps me to
Right.
outrace you, or
Right.
is it better for me to take a card that's it's not a dead card, it's not a terrible card, it's better than a starter, but it slows you down.
Right.
And those are questions you have to decide. And then another one of my favorite things in deck builders is when I can call my deck. I want to have a lean, tight deck that
Right.
combos well, but I get to keep drawing cards. Like ideally for me, at the end of a game, I go through my entire deck every hand. Like that is like
Right.
my dream scenario in a deck builder is I've got 20 cards where they got 40 and I go through all 20 every time it's my turn.
Right.
Again, we'll get to that. But really, the only way that's about the only way to mess with other people. So you already touched on this, but if I wanted to mess with you beyond just taking the card I think you want, can I apply heat to
Oh
you?
yeah.
How would I
Yeah. Yeah.
mess
Yeah.
with my opponent in this game?
So you can inflict heat on other players.
Okay.
Um, but you have to be aware that the other players haven't pivoted to want to use heat for good.
Right. You could throw heat at them and then they're like, thanks.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so there's this way that sometimes backstabbing is helping if you're not paying
Careful.
attention.
Right, right.
You can inflict specters on other characters. But again, that's not what you want to do to the character who's running the ghost deck
Hmm.
because they're like, oh, thanks.
Right.
And so, there's all of these like little backstabby things you could do to each other. And it becomes an opportunity to slow your opponents down, hopefully without kind of ruining your own
Right.
opportunities. And there are lots of things in the game that allow you to choose to hurt other players. And then there's stuff in the game that makes you hurt other players. Because one of the things I learned in playtesting was some people are just really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing a game that's not supposed to be nice. And if you don't force their hand, they're going to be nice.
Right. Well, I will say again, generally speaking, when I play DC, which is competitive, I just try to outrace people. I rarely will just take a card to hurt someone else unless they're just like crushing it and it's like clearly I have to do something or I'm going to lose. My general strategy is just to outrace them. Hope that I get the cards I need. I'm lucky or just better at building my deck. So I'm the same way. I'm not going to mess with people most of the time unless I really have to. By then it's probably too late. By the time I realize I need to, their deck is already just more in sync than mine is and they're going to win, which is another question I wanted to get to. So in DC, we've set, we're going to play 5 supervillains. The game ends once the 5th supervillain has been defeated, and then the winner is determined by points. And so every time you add a card to your deck, it's worth so many points. Certain cards are worth negative points. And then usually the supervillains are worth a lot. So like this card I buy out of the middle might be worth 3, the supervillain's worth 8. So if you take out the supervillains, you probably have a really good chance of winning. What is the end condition for Dark Heist? What triggers, okay, the game is over, and what determines the victor in those cases?
Gotcha. So as you say it that way, I'm seeing how similar maybe.
I mean, it's still a deck builder, and I don't mean any of these comparisons.
No.
That's how I understand your game is through the lens of these other games I've played.
Right. So Dark Heist has these cool things called heists.
Oh, and, that's thematic.
Yeah. So when one player completes 3 heists, it triggers the final round.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get this in.
I can see it, but I can't read it.
Yeah, that's fine. So when one person completes 3 heists, it triggers the final round. If the first player does that, obviously everybody else gets a turn. If the last player does that, well, game's over.
Right. So everybody gets the same number of turns.
So you're also clocking who is where doing what, because that might determine if you're going to get one more turn or not.
Yep.
These heists are very thematic. I just pulled out 2. This one's called A Drop of Poison, right? Mm-hmm. And so what you want to do is you want to make your deck generate enough. So each card is multi-use, and you can use each scoundrel card for crime or for sway. Normally using sway to recruit people into your deck. Normally using crime to get coins by doing larceny. But when you're doing a heist, some of the challenges of the heist are sway, and some of the heist challenges are criminal. So sneak into the ball. That's not criminal. That's kind of persuasive. So in all your hand, you need to generate 5 sway. And if you generate 5 sway in that hand, you're going to make sure you activate any special effects on your cards. And then you're going to discard that hand, and then you're going to draw a whole nother hand for the next challenge. Okay. The next challenge in this case would be Poison the Chalice.
Okay, so hold on. Let me interrupt you there. So does this heist play out over multiple rounds?
No, this is your turn.
Okay, so my turn involves going through my deck multiple hands at a time.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you said a thing. You said, I like to run my deck like an engine. Mm-hmm. And Dark Heist is very much about running your deck like an engine.
Okay.
And that is the, if there's a magic trick, that's the magic trick of the game.
Okay.
And so you need to generate 8 crime in your next hand.
Okay.
Right? But you didn't know what was going to be in that hand. So like now you're just kind of out on the ledge and you're hoping for the best. And you got 2 more challenges to go. You get any special effects that happen on those cards. You discard, you draw 5 more cards. And you need to generate 9 sway in order to, after having poisoned the chalice, you need to propose a toast. Because you want this person to drink.
Yeah, exactly. Poison the cup, right? Doesn't do anything if it sits there.
So you need 9 sway to propose a toast. You want everybody to drink deeply from their cups. And if you succeed at that, you need to discard those cards, draw 5 more, and you need 7 sway to disappear into the chaos.
Okay.
And each heist is super evocative. Some of them are kind of ironic and funny that way. You know, I got another one here. Raise the Dead. So you got to find some fresh bodies. You got to animate the dead. You got to terrify the people so you can then in turn loot the area.
Okay. Okay.
You know?
So my question now, so again, just going back to DC as the touch point, the supervillains are shown one at a time, and everybody takes their turn, and then whoever gets enough power and chooses to attack the supervillain may. Then a new supervillain is drawn and the game continues. Is that heist universal? And like I can be like, oh, I'm going for it, or do I have a select number? How do I choose which heist I'm doing?
So everybody can. So the heist deck gets shuffled.
Okay.
There are 4 players. There's 17 heists. You can imagine everybody. The heists are going to come up in different orders.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to only be able to kind of go for one of the top 2 heists.
Okay.
So you can never say, "Oh, I want that one. I want. Can I dig and get it?" Because that's going to help the deck that I'm making. Because of course, after you succeeded a heist, you get a permanent special effect.
Sure. Okay.
And you power up. You get in-game scoring, which in this game is called notoriety. And the most notorious gang in the end wins.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, you might get a heist. You might say, "Oh, I'm thinking about building my deck this way." You might get a heist that gives you a benefit in a different direction, and you see the opportunity, you might decide to turn left.
Okay.
And try to do this other thing instead because it's an opportunity cost if you don't.
Usually those benefits are pretty substantial.
Right.
So it could just help offset maybe a weakness in your deck, or if you really fine tune, then you might supercharge your deck to be able to go that way. So I like that as a strategy point. I'm still not clear on how we decide who gets the heist. So you're saying you divide out, everybody gets 4, or is it just wanted? So my apologies, I don't understand that part.
It's okay. So there are 2 heist decks.
Okay.
Okay. They're the basic heists, which have 3 challenges. They're a lot easier. They're the ones you're supposed to do first.
Sure.
But if you're feeling froggy, go do the bigger ones because the bigger ones are worth more.
Okay. And do I choose to draw from that when I want to try one?
And when you're ready to do a heist, when you think you can fulfill the first of the challenges, you take the top 2.
Okay.
You choose to do one, you put the other at the bottom of the deck.
Gotcha. And if I fail, do I keep it until I try again, or do I have to put it back in?
You keep it.
Okay.
Now you have an incomplete heist, and you can't start a new heist until
that was the part I wasn't quite sure of. All right. So all that makes sense to me. One of the things about deck building that isn't great for me, I love deck builders, but I have played some of them where through no fault of my own, just luck, someone else just gets the 3 cards they need and their engine is supercharged while I'm still sputtering in first gear. Is there any sort of catch-up mechanic? And I'm not saying you need to, because that's just part of deck building, but is that something that happens in your game? Do you have any sort of catch-up mechanics that would help offset that, where one person's they run off and leave everybody else and there's nothing you can do about it? You're halfway through the game and you already know who's going to win, type of a thing.
So the opportunity when somebody's just way out in advance is to backstab them.
Okay. So that's where you mess with them intentionally.
Sandbag them.
Okay.
Because, specters are worth more notoriety, but heat is -2 notoriety. And so you have this opportunity to, murder their cards, to give them bad cards, to steal their money. All of these things you can do to undermine their deck. And if you're not doing that, you're right. It's not much of a game. But that is the advised strategy.
Right. Okay. No, fair enough. And then one of my other things about deck builders that isn't always great. Again, I love deck builders, but I have found that in most of them, when I get my deck to where it sings and I'm just like, I cannot wait for my next turn, the game's over. Like once it gets to the part where I'm like, I'm now is the most fun of the game, I get 1 turn at that and then the game is over. So how does your deck or does your game deal with that at all? Or do you have any philosophy on how do I get to enjoy my deck for a little while before the game ends?
maybe.
I'm trying really hard to say deck very clearly because we are handling
yes.
decks in this game.
You could say gangs
Mm-hmm.
because you're building gangs.
I'm building gangs, decks of gangs.
So, the long and short of it is, it ends pretty abruptly.
Okay.
And that's what you learn the first time you play. Everybody who plays the first time, they're like, oh, I didn't realize the end was coming that quick. And their second time, they compensate for that, you know. But I think the first game you're learning and you're figuring out the game. And the thing that makes me happy is even that isn't unpleasant. Right? Your deck's you're only going to get to be able to run that engine a couple times.
Okay.
You know, because you need to do 3 heists, and by the second heist, that deck's going to kind of be working. And by the third heist, it's really going to be singing.
Right.
So,
yeah, and that's not a negative. That's just part. I love deck builders, but that's one of the things about them that can sometimes be like, oh man, just when I got the cool thing, the game.
I think it's akin to, you know, that wonderful moment at the RPG table that nobody will ever believe or really understand because they weren't there. You know, it's part of the ephemeral nature of playing these games. And, you know, for better or for worse, we play for those moments.
Yeah, so Grant, who's joined us in chat as well as Lee Wanika, thank you both for joining. Grant mentions that that's a problem for RPGs too. Sometimes, you know, you get your character to a certain level, they get the magic item, or they fulfill their arc. Usually that's kind of the end of the story, the campaign.
And then nobody can play on Wednesdays anymore.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. So I'm trying to think, because I thought I had one more question. Well, I guess I'll just open. So I feel like, again, in comparison to what I'm familiar with, I feel like we've kind of hit pretty hard on the game. Yeah. But is there any elements of the game that my questions have not allowed you to share that you would like to? Because again, you got a Kickstarter right now.
Yeah.
It just funded like 20 minutes ago, but still lots of time. It's only been running for a couple of days. So if people find this, listen to it, hopefully they'll want to support you in some way. Is there anything else about the game that you think people would want to know about to maybe lean them towards jumping over there and throwing you some bucks?
One of the other like meta currencies is coins. You know, you get coins in the game, and money helps you do things. I don't know if you know that, Mike.
It makes the world go around.
So you can spend 2 coins to do a crime or a sway. So if you ever find that your deck isn't quite working, like having a couple extra coins around, I absolutely help do the thing. Money is how you're going to be able to stab your friend. I mean, the player next to you, in the back. And at the end of the game, money isn't worth as much as scoundrels, but it can make the difference in a close game.
Okay.
I've seen people just get all the money, not finish the heist, and win.
Okay.
And I was really surprised by that, but they did the thing, you know. Whereas the person who went and did all of the heists, you know, it literally took everything in their spirit to do it, you know, and they just got across the finish line and they still didn't win. And so it's kind of a great opportunity to play your own game, but you're playing with people. I like games with like player interaction. You know, I played a few of those, they call them collaborative solitaire games.
Okay.
And some of them are cool, but that's not this kind of game.
Right. Okay.
You know, if you're not talking trash, if you're not being annoyed by the other players, I don't think the game's working properly.
Okay, fair enough. So as mentioned, this game is it's February 12th, 2025. It's currently on Kickstarter. It launched like 36 hours ago, something like that, a couple of days ago. Still has almost a full month to go. So we will be in March before this ends. So there's still plenty of time for people to find it. I threw a link in the chat. I don't know if I can put links in chat. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But if not, if you just go to Kickstarter and search Dark Heists, you'll find it. There will be links in the show notes when we get around to putting those in.
And if you go to the Dark Heists Kickstarter page, there are links to be able to play this yourself on Tabletopia, on Tabletop Simulator. And if you message me through the Kickstarter, if you can't message me, just kind of, pay $5, not to message me, but like it'll get you in the messaging queue. If you message me, I will happily, get a group together, or at least another player. We could jump on one of these virtual platforms and play.
Oh,
I really want people to play the game. Game's fun. And I've played with a couple people out in the Ohio area, and like it's not as fun as being at the table with people. It's not as easy as just kind of dealing the cards, but it's not hard.
right. All right.
There's some people who do all of their board gaming on Steam.
All right. You got another backer, so we're past the 69 nice level, but now we're at the even nicer 70 backer level. So I got some questions. This is about the Kickstarter, kind of like as a business model. So there still might be some elements of the game that can come up, but I just, as someone who's ran a few Kickstarters, most of them for my convention, which is different, but I did run one product. I have thoughts and I have opinions on the Kickstarter, but the number one question I have to ask is the elephant in the room: shipping. With all the weird stuff, tariffs, the government nonsense that's happening, how are you handling, or what can you share about what the eventual shipping might cost people?
So shipping in the United States is easy.
Okay.
So
it is what it is. That will not change as far as we know in the next 30 days or whenever.
Well, there have been rumblings over the years that there are people who think that Amazon gets too much benefit from USPS,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was sounded like there was an urge to shut it down 5 years ago. So it may go the way of the dodo. That may raise prices. Right now it's about $10 to mail one of these 1 pound games in a box, so it's cushioned enough not to get dented, anywhere in the United States. Once we get past that, it's a whole nother ball game. And I only just got my head around the pre-January 20th rules for all of that.
Okay.
So when I get my product, I will figure out the new regime. It's one of those things. I thought you were going to ask, how do you get people to back your Kickstarter? Because that is another interesting digression of conversation that I'm happy to have. But if I get enough backers in Canada, when I say enough, I mean 30. I can work with a company that will accept the product from China and ship much cheaper than me shipping 30 units from here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a hub situation. I didn't have enough units in my game to do that, but I'm, I know like Australia does that a lot. There's places where you just divert part of the shipment. It doesn't cost you any more with your publishing partner, but so that's definitely the way to go if you have enough backers to make that work.
If you have enough.
Right.
If you got 2 or 3, it doesn't make sense, and nobody's actually going to work with you anyway.
All right.
Same thing in Europe. Similar thing in Mexico.
Okay. All right. So
does that answer your question?
Yes. So how much does it cost? Like what is my base? How much do I cost to get one copy of the game? No frills, no spills, just I want to play the game with my friends.
The game, I need to say, comes with the so it comes in this little bitty box.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to fit in this little bitty box, I had to put that beautiful, nice feeling rollable neoprene mat in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be your game board that you're playing on. Comes with 70 bespoke scoundrel cards. I say bespoke because like the heat card, there's 16 of them. The Spectre card, there's 12 of them. All the cards in your starter deck are the same card as somebody else's starter deck. So it comes with coins. It comes with a couple of little tracker tokens just to kind of help you keep track of where you are in the heist. Because if you fail at a heist, on your subsequent turn, on your next turn, you can always pick up where you left
Okay.
off.
Yeah, I did. I meant to ask and I didn't. You don't have to fully.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But those little cubes, they just kind of help you. If you don't brush them aside accidentally,
Right.
they
Right.
help you do the thing. And that costs $40.
Okay.
It's going to retail for $50, and it's going to if you don't back now, you will be able to buy it in backer kit for $45.
Okay. So a little bit of a discount for backing now. It would be about the same for retail because with let's assume $10 shipping, I'm going to end up paying $50 for the game. Eventually, it will go into retail minus the taxes. So basically that's what it is. Okay.
And the plan,
Tell me about the plan.
Man plans, God laughs. The plan is that I'm going to be going to conventions, and as I'm at a convention, if you're willing to wait, I'll hand deliver it to you.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Look at that there.
Nice.
So
nice
that's the
plan.
plan.
All right. So roughly $40 plus eventually a little bit more for shipping when we get there.
There is an upgrade for $18
Okay.
standalone, $13 with the game. You can get custom metal coins that I should probably have handy to talk about them on screen. But
metal coins are cool.
They are metal coins. One side says crime, the other side says sway, because it's two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right.
And,
all right.
It makes me happy and brings me joy. The samples have a copper patina, so they look kind of penny.
Okay.
And the final are going to have a gold patina.
Okay.
It's going to make them a little easier to read.
Gotcha. Okay. Will that affect shipping at all? Is that enough weight to change anything?
No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So here's my question. You're my friend. 4,000 seems low for your goal. I know it's your first kind of game, but that seems low.
I had investors.
Okay.
So it's gonna, my manufacturing cost 4,000. Shipping's gonna cost another 1,000. And I had another cost, another overhead cost.
You probably have art, graphic design, all the people you had to contract.
Before we get that, there was one other cost. So the manufacturing ends up costing me probably close to 7,000. The art probably cost me another 3,000.
Okay.
Mostly because of the rules book,
mm-hmm.
which had lots of back and forth on, and iterations and variations. I'm really looking to be in the business of selling games.
Okay.
And so three things. I know I'm going to make my money back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried about it. My investors are, friends and family who want to see me go do the thing.
Sure. Yep. Nothing wrong with that.
And then there's this other notion that the algorithm can help you.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the algorithm? If your Kickstarter back funds early, you can get caught up in the algorithm.
Yep.
And the algorithm can work for you. So what you have an opportunity to see, Michael, is if I'm foolish for asking for so little, or if the algorithm works.
Mm-hmm. I mean, believe me, again, I did my game and I debated on my goal so long, and then I actually changed it like maybe, I want to say a couple of days, but it was probably hours before I went live. I actually changed it again, and I'm still not sure if I did the right thing or not. I funded, but I'm still not sure I did the right thing. So I understand that game you play with, what is the best thing, but I think it makes sense. And I just want to, be upfront about it as you were. Yeah. I expected that I would lose money on Action 12 Cinema. I was willing to take that chance because I just wanted my game to exist in the world. But again, I probably will never make another game. This was absolutely a vanity project for me. You're a little bit different. This is hopefully just the first in many long steps in your career of a game designer. And there is an element of proof of concept. The game comes out, people like it, people play it. Maybe your next one double funds because of that. So this is like an investment in yourself. But we still hope we get enough people back here that you don't have to worry about that. So then my question is, what about stretch goals? So since you set it low, are there stretch goals that are going to add
So
complexity to the campaign?
just for fun, last year, I spent a significant portion of the year selling games,
Mm-hmm.
not my
Right.
games.
You were partnered with another retail partner
I
or
was I
organization.
was working for another publisher, and one of the main reasons they brought me in was to fulfill some of their Kickstarters.
Mm-hmm.
So they had Kickstarters come in, and I think they had a few, and my job was to get the right packages to the right people. And let me tell you, variety is not your friend.
100%. I agree with that. Yes.
And so you just, I mean, understand if you pre-sell 100 units, you need 115 for stuff to get lost in the mail,
Mm-hmm.
for stuff to get damaged in route, um, for stuff to have manufacturing errors. You just need cushion. And if you have two different versions, you need double cushion.
Yep.
And if you have three different versions, you need triple cushion. And um, you can easily find yourself in a pickle where somebody's paid for something and they paid for chocolate and you only got vanilla.
Yep.
And that is how you make unhappy customers.
No, I, again, 100% agree with the Catacon and Action 12 Cinema. I chose to go simple, streamlined for that very reason.
Yeah.
I did not ever want to have a situation where I'm like, I have to order another 500 books from China to give 3 people their books, because that's what I would have done. But I made sure that I didn't have to do that. So yeah.
So I kept it simple. The coin, that metal coins are an upgrade. That is to say, they come outside of the box. I'm not getting them put in the box,
Right.
and I'm sending them to the people,
Okay.
so they can, like, they're very cool. They fit in the box, but like I want all the boxes to be vanilla, and I'm happy to put sprinkles on
Right.
top.
Yep.
You want nuts? You want M&Ms?
Yep.
Great, we could do that.
Yep.
I am not at the scale where I could manage that yet.
No, I think that's a smart decision on your part. So the Kickstarter ends in 29 days. So again, we're looking at first week of March. When do you expect to have these fulfilled?
So my manufacturer is telling me 25 days
Okay.
for manufacturing. My understanding is that this trip by sea should take between 3 and 6 weeks. So 4th of July is reasonable if nothing weird happens, like a national pandemic, like a boat stuck in the Suez, like um like uh strange tax situations not letting any import come in. Um Provided that nothing happens, everybody will be happy.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, I just, it all makes sense. Again, as someone who's done that a couple of times, I have a little bit of information and knowledge on how things work. That all seems reasonable, but again, things can change. Hopefully people understand that when you back a Kickstarter, those are estimates,
Right.
Yeah. It might be September, but you'll be okay. Okay.
So here's my problem.
Yes.
I part of my business plan is that, they're here by Gen Con.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because I have a friend who will let me sell stuff at his booth. I hope Gen Con's not listening, but
your business partner of who you are contracted under.
My distributor.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, the long story short is that I know I can sell all the rest of these at Gen Con. And I'm hoping that they come sooner. If it works out that I could do some cons in the summer. If I could sell out at Gen Con, if I could have another order here for PAX Unplugged.
Mm-hmm.
People love the game. The question is, are people willing to give the game a try? Do people have a couple extra bucks to get a new game? Do people have space on their shelves? Do people have space in their bags? You know, these are the questions. I'm not overly concerned at having a garage full of this game. Um, the board game market is just, you know, 20 times bigger than the RPG market,
Mm-hmm.
and much more polygamous. You're going to find people who they like their flavor of RPG, and that's what they play.
Yep.
You know, I only play solo games. Oh, okay. Um,
Right.
and I only want, belonging outside belonging. I only want Karen. I only want, D20. And that's absolutely fine, but it's a much smaller audience
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's kind of locked in. I love the thing I like about board games is that the social contract is we're going to sit down and we're going to do this for about an hour. And a lot of people commit to that hour.
Right.
You know, um, you don't have all the scheduling hoops that you have for an RPG, and you don't have to keep doing this for weeks and weeks and months on
I
end.
mean, again, RPGs absolutely my first and greatest love in the gaming space.
Likewise,
But I play board
likewise.
games way more than I play RPGs because of that
Yeah,
very thing. It's easier
yeah,
to get people together. You don't
yeah,
have to have as much of a commitment. You don't have to have the
yeah,
same five
yeah.
people show up every week. You can be like, hey, whoever shows up this week, we will play games. I totally understand. I will say, I've already backed your game. So as long as they're in by a Catacon, there'll be one in the Catacon game library. Definitely won't be here by the faculty retreat, but that's in 2 weeks. But we do another faculty retreat in the fall.
Well,
Hopefully it'll be,
don't threaten me with a good
yeah.
time because I have samples.
Ooh,
Ooh.
I leave on February 27th for a faculty retreat. That's going to be 3 days of nonstop gaming.
All
We
right.
rented out an Airbnb. It's in a castle sort of thing. It's going to be so much fun.
Where at?
Grand Rapids.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, we did the one in Grand Rapids we call it our spring retreat, but this year is early March, so it's
Yeah,
probably still gonna be cold as balls.
yeah.
And then we do one in the fall, like September-ish, right before a Catacon to do some final stuff. But no pressure. But if we could get a copy, I will absolutely play it up there and get you some. I don't know if you're still looking for feedback other than hey, I had a great time.
I'd love some feedback,
So,
but I'd much better make changes now than after I have a bunch of boxes in my
true,
garage.
true, true. I will say if you are looking for stretch goal possibilities, I know you're not. I'm just gonna
Uh-oh.
say it out there.
Uh-oh.
Custom deck sleeves because I sleeve all my games. So something right now I use Ultra Pro clear matte finish. Every game I have is in those. But if you got some cool art back ones, I might throw some bucks for that.
So there was a dance with my manufacturer to do this, and I think they didn't understand what I was saying
Mm.
because they sent me cardboard deck sleeves,
Oh, like the cartons that you can put them in.
and I don't know if you understand that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah, this first time's gonna be simple.
10 years from now, when the Dark Heist 10th edition
Yeah, yeah.
anniversary custom special edition, then we can talk about that.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So we're actually already over an hour, so I want to kind of wrap things up here. I
Cool.
feel like we've done a pretty good job, but is there anything that you were hoping you get to share tonight that I didn't give you a chance to share yet? Just go.
You know, I just got to take a look at Blade 68,
Okay.
which is the 1960s version of Blades in the Dark, which if you go back to the beginning of why do you like
Right,
heist?
right.
They put me right there in the middle of that Parker James Bond genre that and um they even have in Blades in the Dark you can either be assassins or bounty hunters or ghost catchers. One of the the groups that you can be in Blade 68 are insurrectionists, people who are kind of working toward a civil cause in a uncivil way. And that really kind of lit up my Christmas tree.
Nice.
So, you know, I've taken it out for a test drive. I'm really, uh, I'm kind of jazzed by it. You know, some people are like, oh, like Austin Powers. I'm like, yeah, Austin Powers with some teeth. But
Who does number two work for? All right. So where can people find you? Obviously, there will be links to the show notes, again, to the Kickstarter, but ashyfeet.com, social medias, where can people find you?
ashyfeet.com. These days I'm on Instagram, um, because they say I should be somewhere. So I'm ashyfeet.com, DOTCOM on IG. And yeah, like if you wanna play some games online, give me a call. I can sometimes shuffle my schedule around to play many times a day. So
Okay.
uh,
Any
yeah.
cons you're going to the next month or two? Any?
I'll be at Strategicon next week. I'll be at Dice Tower West
Okay.
with a demo booth for Dark Heists in early March. Unfortunately, I'm not making it to Louisville for Gamma, but um, after that, it's just it's kind of that wide open zone where I'm going to sleep because I've really been burning the candle at both ends. And I think Kubla Khan up in the Bay Area is my Memorial Day
Okay.
con this year.
All right. I got my thing in Grand Rapids, which is a private invite only thing. So that doesn't count, but I will be at Origins. I will be at Gen Con. So if they come in, I'll pick mine up from you at Gen Con.
I'm thinking about
Oh,
Origins. I'm definitely, I will be there if I have product.
okay.
And I'll be looking for somebody to sell it.
Um, I
So
can't help you there, but yeah, but hopefully,
I know.
hopefully I'll see you there.
Yes,
As for
yes.
myself, I'm on Blue Sky, but I don't do a lot there. I'm on Facebook. I don't do a lot there. I'm really bad at that part of that, which is one of the reasons why I'm at Tabletop Journeys, because Josh handles all that for me now. But if you're listening to this,
Hey, Josh.
if you enjoyed the conversation Mo and I had, we do this or a version of this show every other week. Normally Chris is with me, who is under the weather today. Sometimes we'll have guests like Mo with three of us, sometimes not. But please consider liking, subscribing to the channel so you'll get notified whenever we go live. And then again, Tabletop Journeys, we're putting out a ton of content. We're still deep diving into the new DMG. We got the Monster Manual. We did an interview last night, which I had an absolute blast with. We interviewed the lead creator of the Monty Python role-playing game, co-curricular
Oh,
program.
wow.
It was I now regret not backing that Kickstarter. He made a believer out of me. That book is
Okay.
beautiful. Can't wait for you to see and hear that interview. And there's just more constant stuff coming. So please like, subscribe to the channel. Let Josh and Lee Winika know that you appreciate what they do, because I certainly do. And then catch me and Chris here every other week, Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern time, for another episode of Tabletop Cafe. Again, we're your roadside diner along your tabletop journey, serving up gaming goodness, bite-sized chunks of gaming goodness for you and your friends. All right, Mo, wave goodbye to
Waiter,
everybody.
can I have the check?